What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football home over at fakepigskin.com. I'm your host, Kyle. With me once again, it's the life of Pablo. What's up, Kanye?
Hello.
What's going on, my
man? So much. The sun
You've been
is
watching
down now, but it was shining all day.
You've been watching some World Cup?
Oh, every morning.
It's been the best.
It's been one of the greatest benefits of being unemployed. The last month or so has been, I wake up at 7, watch the first game.
Yep.
I pretty much go get some coffee after the first game and come back for the second game, just taking it all in.
That is the one thing I do appreciate is there's like an hour block between the first and second game.
Yep.
Like obviously now they're doing double headers, which is, I mean, I guess I get it because they want to, have people watching more games and
Right.
they don't want teams not trying because all they need is a draw instead of a win. But it's been incredible, and I like having the hour long in between. To go get coffee or go take a break and then come back and get ready for the next one. So it's been rad for sure. It's crazy. I mean, Germany's out. It looked like Brazil was struggling, and then they got it through, and England ended up looking really good, and it'll be really interesting to see how the knockout phase kind of falls together in some of the interesting games, because I think we're going to have some serious heavyweights going off early in the round of 16.
Yeah. Real quick, who do you have winning it all?
I'm still riding with Belgium.
Okay. All right.
I know they definitely have questions and been a team that when it matters most have kind of fallen apart, but I love what they have with Lukaku and De Bruyne and they Hazard, and I think they have it all together. I think their best players are at the right age. I think they can score enough goals to beat Brazil or France or any of these teams. The defense is a little questionable, but I think for the most part they have what it takes to get there. What about you?
Yeah, I think they've looked as good as anybody. I picked Brazil to win it, to beat Argentina, and since picking that in my bracket, I've kind of regretted picking Argentina making it that far. But I still think Brazil has a really legitimate shot. Hopefully Marcelo is not seriously injured.
Yeah, and Neymar.
But yeah, I mean they've had moments of complete brilliance, and then a lot of time where you're like, man, they can be better, but
yeah, they kind of have a Golden State Warriors vibe where they when they're playing teams they don't think are as good as them, they don't try as hard, and they kind of dick around for 50 to 60 60 minutes, and then we should actually try. I think when they start playing France and Belgium and some of the big boys, I think they'll definitely step their game up, and I can't wait. Like, it's going to be just the best.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Same. But we are not here to talk World Cup all night. We are here to talk some fantasy football. So I wanted to get your opinion because I've been doing some best balls. I've been doing some mocks. I've been doing, all kinds of just different drafts. Obviously, we were talking today kind of about how we're going to do the next month or so of shows. And, if we get through the next month, we're going to be into August. We're going to be, getting ready to do our actual home league drafts where, rookie drafts are completely out of the way, and the season will be here before we know it. And I guess my biggest question is, it feels like in past years we've had a clear consensus 101, or at least like two guys that are pretty much people go back and forth, but it's probably going to be one of the two. This year, it feels more wide open. Is the 101 Todd Gurley to you if we're talking about 2018 redraft leagues, or is there a bigger discussion we need to have here?
I mean, I'm into bigger discussions. I wouldn't say that Todd Gurley is my clear-cut 101. If I really like that you said if we make it through the next month, like like something crazy is gonna happen, and I don't know if we're gonna make it, but if we do, this 2018-19 season is gonna be crazy.
Just think of it like the Oregon Trail, dude. We might die of dysentery. We might have to cut off a limb.
Snake bite. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll end up at the in Oregon with 1 foot, and but we'll be ready
Yes.
for the 2018 season. So
Yes. Oh
somehow,
man.
some way, we gotta comb through this madness. But it's really easy to get locked into one season and be like,
Hmm.
oh, Todd Gurley, he was incredible. He was the reason why so many of us won leagues last year.
Right.
Uh, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, heavily involved in the passing game. He's gone from 26 to 57 to 87 targets over the past 3 seasons. More productive with those catches, more yards on each catch. He had 6 touchdowns via the pass. Like there's obviously he was insane last year,
Yeah.
but to absolutely not include the 800 yards and 6 touchdowns from the season before, 6 total touchdowns, none via
Hmm.
the pass. Like that seems like a big leap to make. Now, obviously, Jared Goff took tremendous steps. The offense as a whole made huge steps forward. So there's a lot to say. Well, it's not just a fluke. It wasn't just one year, but like at the same time, we got to have a little pessimism. So if it's not Todd Gurley, who are the other names that you would consider as your first overall pick?
I mean, I think when you're looking at that number one spot, you got to be looking at the any of the top RBs who are going to be able to be that bell cow 3 down guy who can get you 300 plus touches.
Hmm.
Volume is king. So you're looking for that volume, and I think that Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, for sure, should be put into the mix. Depending, you kind of pick your poison. Some people would want to throw Ezekiel Elliott in there.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't, but that's
Now, why
that's
why the why the hesitation with Zeke?
my hesitation with Zeke is it's a myriad thing really because I don't think that he's as prolific in the passing game, and I don't think the Cowboys want to use him that way. I think they've brought in Tavon Austin, and I'm not even jumping on that wagon. I'm just saying, they seem to be trying to figure out a way to spell Zeke to give him some breathers to get somebody else on the field who can operate in space. Um, and so if that's taken away from Zeke, that's you're losing some volume there. And on top of that, I haven't forgotten about the suspension thing, and I also have seen some pictures. And I don't know if this is how recent this is, but of Zeke looking a little heavier. There's just I don't know. I have some off the field things with Zeke where I'm just kind of
Yeah. So
I'll let somebody else take him.
yeah, he definitely like gives you cause for pause. Like I'm with you there. Like there is reason to be a little hesitant. Now, this is a guy that had 40 targets in 15 games during his rookie year. He
Hmm.
had almost 40 targets in 2017 and only played 10 games, 5 less games. So I
Right.
I expect the volume to be there. Now I'm with you. Bringing in Tavon Austin definitely, like, well, yeah, I'm with you 100% in. I don't know if I'm not drafting Tavon Austin. I don't want him, but
Yeah.
if he's taking away 5 targets a game
Right.
or 6 touches a game, even if it's just
Sure.
a small tiny role, uh, there's reason to think that maybe he's 50 targets instead of 70 or 80. Now, the other
Sure.
thing is the Cowboys have obviously lost a ton of weapons. They lost Dez. They lost Witten. There's going to be opportunity to step up, and Allen Hurns is there. Michael Gallup's there. I think Zeke is primed to get that yardage. So I think if you take him with the 101, I would not blame you. I think it's definitely a solid choice. I think I'm with you in terms of this. If we're taking somebody first overall, especially if I'm not a guy that likes running backs early. It just tends to I just there's so much volatility there. But if it's a
Yeah.
guy that's getting 70 to 80 targets and getting that volume on the ground, it's something that it's almost like you have to do it. So
Right.
I think David Johnson's there. I think is DeAndre Hopkins or Antonio Brown in the conversation for you?
Antonio Brown is for sure. DeAndre Hopkins, I love. I have no problems taking him the first. At the 101, I would not. I'm a little bit hesitant to believe that Watson isn't going to have somewhat of a sophomore slump.
Yeah.
Um, so that doesn't mean he's not going to play well. It doesn't mean he won't put up stats. I think there's very high expectations being put on him for the small sample we got
I'm
last year.
100% with you there, especially in terms of touchdowns. He was
Right.
getting touchdowns at an insane rate, and
Yep.
DeAndre was getting a lot of those. So if
Yep.
though, and I think I'm with you. Like Hopkins is a guy that I'm comfortable taking 5, 6, 7. I'll take Antonio Brown over him, but if he's your second or third wide receiver off the board, I'm very
Mhm.
comfortable with him there. I still expect big things, but I'm with you
Yeah.
on like I think Deshaun Watson's a top 10 guy, probably a top 5 guy, but I don't know that he's going to be the guy that we saw last year, just putting up points in bunches, putting up touchdowns in bunches, and you have to be ready for some of that regression.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I really think it is. I think it's those running backs, and it'll be really interesting. I think you could have like 10 different drafts, and I think all those running backs could get kind of mixed in different orders, and it wouldn't seem that weird.
Yeah. Just looking at fantasy football calculator here. So you got Gurley, Bell, Johnson, 1, 2, 3, and Zeke at 4, AB at 5, Kamara, Saquon, DeAndre Hopkins at the 8. Would you take Hopkins over Saquon and Alvin Kamara?
I would.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Um, what
And
about where AB is at 5? Would you take him ahead of any of those RBs there?
it honestly depends. In full PPR, I might take him one overall.
Okay,
When we're talking standard or half. I mean,
sure.
and don't get me wrong, like those that pass catching work from the running backs is so incredibly useful, and these guys are the elite of the elite. But we've also seen suspensions, injuries. Like
Yep.
I did some like hit rate stuff, and just looked at the average difference of kind of where they were all drafted and how many of them
Mm,
finished in the top 10 and all that stuff. And last year was the first year where the running backs were more stable than the receivers.
interesting.
Usually it's the receivers are significantly safer. And the old adage, Matthew Berry's been touting it for years, is you can't lose your first, or you can't win your league in your first pick, your first and couple picks. But
Sure.
you can lose it if you
Yep.
draft a stud. Like I was so excited. Last year was the first year I'd gotten the first overall pick in multiple leagues, um,
Yeah.
and I had so many David Johnson shares I didn't know what to do with myself. And
Right.
that guy didn't hit the field, and those teams I have some ideas, so I was able to kind of salvage it with the wire and stuff. But I put myself way behind the eight ball,
Yep.
by going that way. So
I mean, it wasn't your fault because he was pretty
right,
much the clear consensus 101. But I
exactly.
totally hear what you're saying.
But
If you mess
that
up or if you get an
I
injured
mean,
guy in that first round, it's tough.
yeah. I mean, there's years that Jamal Charles was the guy and then blew out his knee, or
Right.
Adrian Peterson. Oh, he's the number one guy. There's no question. Blows out his knee, and it takes a lot. Last year, if you got Kamara, or if you were able to find somebody in kind of off the waiver wire, and all of a sudden you found a stud, Kareem Hunt.
Yep.
You're doing backflips, and obviously you salvaged your season, but there's a lot to take in, so it's not as easy. Like I think I'm probably taking, man, I'm probably taking Gurley or Bell. I'm probably going Bell as my 101. He's probably the guy that if I'm on the clock at 101, he's the guy I'm leaning. Gurley's right there. And then it's really interesting. I think Antonio Brown's in the conversation. I think OBJ is actually in the conversation for me in that 3, 4, 5 kind of range.
Okay.
Like I'm taking OBJ over Kamara and Barkley and Kareem Hunt and Melvin Gordon.
And Hopkins?
Yeah, I think so. It's really
Okay.
close, but that's putting a lot of trust in Eli Manning. But I think
Yeah.
that's, I think OBJ is that good, and I know, and that's the one thing is it's really easy to get caught up in what last year was and kind of
Hmm.
miss what the years before were.
How concerned are you about the Giants spreading the ball out with all the talent they
I
have?
mean, it's a legit concern. Like I was looking at some offenses today that have all these weapons. Kansas City and Chicago, and
Yeah.
the Giants are right there. Like either you think OBJ is going to be OBJ,
Mm-hmm.
and then Eli. If you think OBJ is that, if you think Evan Ingram is solid, if you think Sterling Shepard is going to be productive on a weekly basis, then you either need to vault Eli Manning or you need to drop. If you think Eli is going to have issues, then you have to take catches away from elsewhere, and
Right.
maybe OBJ is just a top 10 guy instead of a top 2 or 3 guy, and maybe Evan Ingram takes a little bit of a step back, and maybe Shepard's just a bye week filling guy, and then Eli Manning's numbers kind of settle where they should as a top
Mm-hmm.
15 to 20 type guy, but. I think there's a lot to like there, and I think OBJ can still be good enough in that offense, especially with McAdoofus out of the way, for for the Giants to be good. So I don't know. Like I'm perfectly comfortable, and I'd rather take my shots as the draft rolls along than
Right.
than kind of gamble with my early picks. Like I know what I'm getting if I take Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
I pretty much know what I'm getting with Odell Beckham, unless he has like a season like last year, which it happens every once in a while. Like Julio in round 2 is just mind-boggling to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would take him over Dalvin, I would take him over Fournette, I would take him over Melvin Gordon. This reminds me of the year, what is this? Probably 2013, 2014, where Justin Forsett all of a sudden became a first-round draft pick. It was Justin Forsett and Jeremy Hill were 2 running backs.
I don't make the law. Justin Forsett.
But people it was crazy because everybody was clamoring for running backs because the year before it was so frustrating and you needed a running back to compete,
Yep.
and then everyone ended up overdrafting running backs, and Antonio Brown, who ended up becoming the best player in fantasy that season, went
Mm-hmm.
end of first round, beginning of second round. And I'm just
Right.
like, what are we doing? What are we
Yeah.
doing? And I even fell for it in a couple leagues. Like, it made a ton of sense, but I don't think I can do it again. I think I'm going to go for that safety and the reliability and be
Mm-hmm.
able to pencil in studs. And even if I start, like my ultimate start is one of these Antonio Brown, Hopkins, or OBJ. And then on the way back, getting Julio, Michael Thomas, Keenan, Devontae Adams. If I can start with 2 of those guys, I feel so good about where my team is, the reliability, and kind of the direction I'm heading in.
Yep. So just looking at this ADP here, Julio's at 202.
Yeah.
Do you take him? You take him above Cook, who's at 201.
Yep.
Fournette's at 112.
Yep.
Melvin's at 110. What about Hunt at 109?
I think Hunt and Barkley is where I start having a little bit of a pause.
Okay.
But
What
even
about
then,
Kamara?
Kamara, I don't know. Like the fact that Mark Ingram isn't going to be there for 4 games kind of
Uh-huh.
makes him feel a little bit safer to me. But
Yeah.
I feel touchdown regression coming for him too.
You
So
know what's
like,
unfortunate is that Kamara, I feel like if Ingram was going to be playing the whole season, well, assuming he stayed healthy,
yeah,
I think Kamara his ADP was somewhere middle of the early second round.
yeah,
And then after that came out, he just like jumped up into like the middle of the first round.
yeah. He was like 109, 110, 111 that range, and then he vaulted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting how one little nugget can affect someone's ADP so much. And like Mark Ingram is still going to be a guy I like, and I was
Sure.
kind of keeping an eye on his ADP, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes come draft time. When
Yeah.
when everybody starts getting involved, I feel like he'll fall a little bit, but he's still going. Where is he going? He's going in the 5th round, and as
Yeah.
someone like me, especially that tends to start wide receivers, I think I'll end up with a lot of Mark Ingram shares come draft time.
I've taken him in the 6th, in the 7th, in the late 5th, even depending on my team setup in best balls so far.
Yeah, and
But I've actually even heard some people speculating that, like, what if he's the next Willie Snead? I mean, it's a completely different situation, but where Snead missed the first few games of the season and then just never really
yeah,
like
no, there's legit concern, especially because their bye week is week 6. So you're
Right.
basically he's gonna come back or maybe his bye
Week
week's week
5.
5, so he'll be back starting week 6. So you're
Mm-hmm.
missing out on the first 5 weeks, which
Right.
depending on your league and how deep your rosters are and that kind of
That's a
stuff.
quarter of the season, or
Yeah,
I mean, even more of the
yeah,
regular
it's
season.
it's half your regular season pretty much.
Right.
And if you're starting 1-4, 2-3, you're gonna be like, why did I take him? He's just
Mm-hmm.
eating up roster space. Or if it's week 3 and some hot young player is popping and he's sitting there on the wire, and you're like, well, I don't want to drop anyone else. Let me drop Mark Ingram. I mean, you might end up frustrated, but I can totally envision a scenario where that happens.
Yeah,
I think best ball is the ideal spot for Mark Ingram.
for sure. Agreed.
Now, I want to kind of talk about some of those running backs. Obviously, we talked Kamara, but Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, like these guys were all monsters last year. They're all,
McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey. There's another name. Like there's a lot to like, and obviously, drafters are telling us that they like these guys. But Kamara's going 6th, Kareem Hunt's going 9th. Fournette's going 12. Dalvin's going 13. McCaffrey in the top 20. Joe Mixon top 25. Like these guys are flying off draft boards.
Yeah.
Are you here for it? Like, you think this is the right move? You think people should be aggressive on these guys, or do you think maybe we should have a little pause and maybe think, well, yeah, some of them were incredible, but maybe there's some reason to kind of back off a little bit at their current prices.
Sure. Well, I think, just taking it from a historical point of view, running backs typically have a 3 to 5 year window
Mm-hmm.
where they're extremely, extremely successful. And then, you'll have the few guys who are outliers like LaShawn McCoy who can, go all the way until they're 30 and continue to be successful and be used in that heavily high volume position. So I completely understand why the younger running backs are vaulted higher. And it doesn't happen with the wide receivers nearly as much because people are just looking at that window. Okay, this is their window. This is their time. There's some of the guys on there, though, that I'm not fully on board with. So we've talked about Dalvin Cook, and him going at the 201 or the 13th overall pick is just not too rich for my blood, but I
Yeah,
understand why people saw a few games and just fell in love with him.
So Dalvin was my favorite rookie last year heading into the
Mm-hmm.
season, and I'm
Okay.
I'm a big Dalvin guy. I think
Yeah.
obviously there's a ton of reason for excitement. I think that offense is going to be incredible once again. I think Kirk Cousins will be awesome, and assuming he stays healthy, I think he is worthy of going there. That said, we saw last year the injury and ended up kind of derailing his season. And I don't know that we can just be like, well, it was 1 year, he's a rookie, whatever. He's an explosive player. He's a guy I love. A player
Sure.
that coming off an injury, didn't expect to see the same kind of enthusiasm and hype that we saw. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had several shares that I moved in Dynasty this offseason for way more than and I'm a Dalvin guy. Like I'm not just gonna give him just to move on. Like I wasn't
Right.
going like buy the hype. I was getting blown away with offers that were,
Hmm.
over what I would be, normally, in terms of, some leagues where we have auction fab dollars. So I was getting, 3 times what I paid for him. I was getting, these incredible packages. So I was like, okay, this is worth me investing, worth me taking it. And I still have a couple shares, obviously, because I love him. But in redraft, like I'm fine taking them. Like I would personally, if you want to talk about guys that I'm going to pause a little bit on, it's Leonard Fournette for sure.
Okay.
I have concerns about that offense. Obviously, they were incredible last year. The defense should still be good. Blake Bortles, I think they found a way to kind of manage him, and volume is king. So I guess I probably shouldn't be as pessimistic as I am, but I just am.
Yeah.
And
Have you heard
Kareem Hunt,
anything about his weight
no, is he
recently?
dealing with some weight
Uh,
issues?
well, in a good way, he dropped from 245 to 225, I think.
That's incredible. If
So
he
people are saying he's looking, smoother, sleeker, faster.
Yeah. And
I don't
that's something that gets me a little more excited about. And it'll be interesting to see if that little bit of weight ends up
know.
actually if he's still going to be able to take the pounding and the hits like he has in past like in his rookie year,
Right.
and kind of maintain through the season. Now Christian Christian McCaffrey in the middle of the second round,
Yep.
with the addition of C.J. Anderson, with Cam still being there. Like, are you comfortable paying that price in drafts?
Man, that's that's tough. I'm just looking. I'm just scrolling down right now, seeing the guys that are taking after him: Devontae Freeman, AJ Green, LaShawn McCoy, Jerick McKinnon, Mike Evans, Joe Mixon, Gronk, Doug Baldwin. Like I'm reading all these names, and I'm like, I don't know if any of these guys are guys I would rather have.
Yeah,
It
like
feels a little rich to take him mid-second, but if it's PPR, which we're looking at here, if
mm,
it's PPR and I mean, if he gets 200 carries and 70, 80 targets,
yeah.
I mean,
I am really curious to see how C.J. Anderson is deployed because obviously he's a guy who went up for almost 1,000 yards last year.
right.
Um, so I don't think they brought him in just to cut just because. I think he's going to be
Hmm.
involved. Can you envision a scenario where Christian McCaffrey and C.J. Anderson are both like top 15, 20 guys like we saw with Kamara and Ingram last year, like we've seen with other teams in the past, especially in PPR, where maybe McCaffrey is like a top 8 to 12, and then C.J. Anderson's like in the back end of the top 20?
Sure. Um, I mean, it's theoretically definitely possible. What I'm looking at with the Panthers is I could be totally off here, but it seems to me like they might be trying to transition their offense into a more up-tempo, higher octane, like more passing offense. And they drafted DJ Moore. Um, they drafted Christian McCaffrey last year, first round. It seems like they want to increase in the passing game and spread things out, which will hopefully keep Cam, you know, healthier, giving him more time and space.
Yeah, they also
Uh,
hired Norv Turner, so I don't
right.
know.
He's typically more of a passing
Yeah,
guy, so
like I'm really curious to see what his offense looks like this year because there has been time where he, especially with the Chargers, where he really made their offense, impressive. Um,
yep,
Obviously, Greg Olson hopefully sees a nice boost.
right.
But yeah, no, and I see that's my I think with Anderson there, and maybe I'm giving Anderson too much credit, but like I would take Devonta Freeman over him. I would take AJ Green, and it's when you start talking about LaShawn McCoy, Jerick McKinnon, Joe Mixon, where I'm probably going McCaffrey. So back end of the
Yep,
second feels fair. And
sure.
it depends on how I start.
Yep,
If I take Antonio Brown and on the way back McCaffrey's there, and I know I can
sure.
get Mike Evans or Doug Baldwin or Adam Thielen on the way back as my wide receiver too, like I'm
Yep,
very comfortable with that.
right.
But if I start with one of the big four, or I don't think there's any way I'm taking McCaffrey in round two. I'm probably double tapping receivers and hopefully getting, Julio and AJ Green or Michael Thomas and AJ Green, and then,
Hmm.
doing backflips out of the draft room. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Just looking at positional value, McCaffrey is the 11th running back off the board. Um, I think I think that's definitely a possibility that he finishes 10 to 13 range.
hmm
Um,
especially in PPR. Like I could see
yeah,
him. I could see him just like maybe not having any monster weeks, but
sure.
being really solid every single week. And
Hmm.
honestly, if I'm taking a running back that this high, that's kind of what I want.
Yeah,
I don't want T.Y. Hilton where he has a week where he scores 50 points and then a week where he
right.
scores 5. I want a guy that I know every week is going to get me 4 to 6 catches in 30 yards receiving and then maybe 50 or 60 yards rushing at a minimum. So I'm
Right.
looking at close to double digit points every single week. And then,
Yep.
obviously the weeks where he gets 2 touchdowns and he wins you a week, and it's awesome. But I need that stability. I need that safety. Like
Yep.
Devonta Freeman in that same range is just like it's just crazy what a year can make. Because Devonta
Yeah.
Freeman was a guy who was going in the Kamara, Saquon Barkley range a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and had some obviously concussion issues down the stretch, and now
Yep.
we're getting a round discount because people think he's not good anymore.
Right. And he's not the new shiny, flashy thing.
Exactly, exactly. Speaking of that new shiny, flashy thing, we got some new running backs, and obviously Saquon is the highlight of the class. But Rashad Penny, Darius Geis, Royce Freeman, Kerryon Johnson. Like, there's guys with real opportunity this year who can step in and be fantasy difference makers, and we've seen rookies be really good right away. We've seen, like we mentioned, there's really 3 to 5 years where they're it, and they have to take advantage of all that potential. Because once that's over, the explosiveness kind of fades a little bit, and then they're not
Right.
as useful. So, are we overrating this year's rookie class based upon last year's, or do you feel comfortable taking, you know, Barkley in the middle of the first, taking Rashad Penny in the third round, taking Darius Geis end of the third, early fourth, Sony Michelle at the end of the fourth, like Ronald Jones is going in the fifth. Like, are you comfortable kind of with where these rookies are slotting in to current drafts?
Ah, man. You know, for the most part, I try to avoid rookies in the first few rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say, and there's some guys that are more my guys. I would say, like from the first to fifth, I'm not taking any of them except for uh, Saquon is just hard to pass up. If you can get him at the end of the first, beginning of the second,
Yeah. So are you
um,
taking Barkley over Kareem Hunt?
man, that's tough.
I'm not.
I
Are you taking Barkley over Melvin
yes,
Gordon?
yes, I probably am.
You are. Are you taking him over Melvin Gordon?
Um, man, yes,
Are you
yep.
take? Are
I'm
you,
I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna say
yeah,
yes.
are you taking him over Leonard Fournette?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it feels pretty comfortable. Like I'm taking Kareem Hunt. I'm taking Melvin Gordon. So the earliest I would take Barkley is probably the end of the first, and I can guarantee you that
Mhm.
I will own basically no shares of Saquon this year.
Yeah,
I just because he's gonna go. I think between 106, 105, and 110. I would say is pretty much his range.
yep.
And obviously, on his lowest is 111. Like if I'm in a league and Brown, Hopkins, and OBJ are off the board, and I'm on the turn and I can get Saquon and Michael Thomas or Saquon and Keenan Allen,
Hmm.
that's probably something I'll do. But I mean that's kind of where I start to really consider him, and like I said, that probably means I'm not getting him. Um, so no Rashad Penny or Darius guys at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth.
Geis is a no for me there. Penny, I would think about. If
Yeah,
I had two wide receivers at that point in the third round, I would think strongly about Penny.
yeah. Or if you
Um,
started, if you so let's say you started Kareem Hunt, you got two receivers, you got two Julio, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams. So you're in the fourth round, early part of the fourth. You obviously have a stud running back and two really good receivers. Is Darius Geis is there? Alex Collins is there. Allen Robinson's there. Demarius Thomas is there. Uh, is Geis the guy for you at that point?
man, what's interesting to me is I see Alex Collins here at the 401, but I feel like I've never seen him go that early in any draft I've done so far this year. I don't know if you feel the same way or have noticed this, but I feel like
Yeah.
I've gotten Alex Collins in the early eighth round, even like that late sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like sixth, seventh is kind of where I usually get him. It really
Mm-hmm.
depends on the league, but like per this, it's his between the beginning of the third and the end of the fifth is kind of his range.
Right.
But I'm kind of with you. I think, but
So I would wait. I would wait around, or two, and hopefully be able to grab Alex Collins instead of grabbing Geis at
okay.
early fourth.
So you grab receiver or tight end or something else there,
Yep.
and then you're just as comfortable grabbing Alex Collins the next round rather than taking the shot with the rookie.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
it's not even just that he's a rookie. There's other factors. Like I know the Ravens want to run the ball, and I strongly believe personally that Alex Collins is the best running back on that team. Darius Geis, I'm not discounting the fact that I think he's the best running back on the Redskins. I have a much harder time trusting. This is just me personally, but like trusting their coaching staff and their decision making.
Yeah, well, and this is
Um,
also a team that has Chris Thompson, who we've seen
right.
be really
Yep.
valuable in the passing game. And
Exactly.
as long as he's healthy, he's going to be involved, and that takes away touches.
Right.
Are you taking Jay Ajayi over the two rookies?
JJ. Which ones? Ronald Jones and
Over no over
over Penny and
over
Geis.
Penny and Geis, yeah.
Uh, Penny, absolutely not. Geis, if I can get Ajayi around later, yes,
What about Kenyon Drake? If you can get him around later, would you do it?
sure, yep,
Yeah, see, that's kind of my thing. Is like, I like Alex Collins and Kenyon Drake just as much as Darius Geis and Rashad Penny, and I
yep.
love Rashad Penny. Penny
I do
would
too. That's
Penny's
why I'm a sucker for how I can't say no.
but yeah, I think see that, and that's I guess if you look at it in terms of the range, I think sometime in the fourth is probably the right range. If
Hmm.
your league's a little more running back heavy, and say a Drake or a Jay is off the board, and those guys are sitting like, if I start like I like to with receiver heavy, and I start Hopkins and then two of, maybe I get Devonte Adams and AJ Green, or maybe I get Keenan Allen and Mike Evans. If I start that, I'm fine taking a running back, and if that running back is Rashad Penny or Darius Geis, I'm okay there.
Hmm.
Um, but like I think I'm with you. I think I take Alex Collins over both of them. I think I take Kenyon Drake, and I take Jordan Howard, who is going in the beginning of the third round, and I feel like I'm going to be able to get at a better rate based upon some of the comments coming out of fantasy Twitter.
Yeah, man, people just hate him for some reason. I don't get
Yeah,
it, but
well, yeah. Part of it is Matt Nagy coming in, and they think I think Tariq Cohen's going to definitely be involved, and I'm with them there. But I also think
Mhm.
we saw last year where Jordan Howard, when he's the guy, and when this team is good, and we think they'll be better. We don't think, they're not going to be down 20 points in the first quarter. They're not going to be, having to throw against every team to catch up. I think
yeah,
they obviously against good teams, but we've seen last year, especially when they're at home, they can be solid. Their defenses got better. If they can keep it somewhat close, and if Trubisky and Burton and Allen Robinson and all these guys are as good as we think they have the potential to be, I
yeah,
think Jordan Howard has the potential to be really, really good this year. And like if he's my RB1, I'm perfectly fine with that.
yeah. I mean, I think he's solid RB2 floor with
Hmm.
RB1 mid RB1 ceiling. So
Right. And I think even if you take, Jordan Howard, you can take shots on Adarius guys, Ronald Jones, and then you have stability where if these rookies or guys with a few more question marks, Kenny and Drake, don't pan out like we expect,
hmm.
at least you have that stability on a week to week. And I think that's kind of it says a lot about how I build my teams. I think in
Yeah,
terms of I'm looking for that stability early because those volatile players obviously can win you a league, but they can also blow it for you real quick. And I think
sure.
there's just as much opportunity in the mid rounds to get guys that can be league winners. We've seen it
Hmm.
in previous seasons. We saw it with Kareem Hunt. We saw it with Kamara last year. We saw it with Odell Beckham. I mean, it's just year over year these guys pop. So obviously you want to take shots, but
Right.
stability early, and then kind of your wild cards as the draft rolls along, I think is kind of key for success.
Yeah, man.
Is that
Agreed.
is that kind of how you draft as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, just real quick.
Sure.
Do you have a guy like post sixth round running back who you think is going to be that for you?
Let's take a look.
I feel like we've talked about this before, but
Yeah,
it's kind
no,
of
I mean,
always changing for me a little bit.
there's definitely some names that, as I'm kind of going through this, that I think could be real impressive in that range, and definitely be guys I'm taking shots on.
Hmm.
I think Marlon Mack, assuming Andrew Luck's healthy, I think is a guy that, if that offense kind of gets back to where it was, is gonna I think he has the potential to be the guy, and if
Yeah.
Luck's out there and he's chucking it, they're going to be in the red zone a lot more, and I think Marlon Mack could be a big winner there. Um, On Johnson, I want to get excited about, but I'm not sure. Like, I have this weird feeling that LeGarrette Blount's just going to have like a 9 touchdown season, and
Yeah.
I've been getting him at the end of all my like best ball leagues.
Hmm.
So obviously a dart throw there. Is there a name that kind of stands out to you right now?
Just to touch on carry on there, I tried to get excited about him a little bit. There's some guys that I really respect who love him, and I took him at 12th in a rookie draft like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to get psyched up about it, and then I just couldn't, and I kind of like panicked and traded him for Cortland Sutton and James Washington.
Which I
A
love.
few, yeah, and I felt great about it, absolutely great. And then the next day, it came out saying they were going to ride the hot hand. The thing also, as a Packer fan, I see a lot of the Lions games and hear a lot of what their players say, and it seems like they always are talking up Theo Riddick as if
Mm-hmm.
he's like an integral part of their offense. And so everybody else in the running back, I know Theo's not going to ever be like that 1-2,
Right.
first second down guy, but I feel like they love him and want to use him and want to keep him involved.
Yeah.
And so that scared me away from drafting Amir super high, and it's pushed me away from
Yeah,
drafting
it's just like
carry on that high too.
yeah, it's just like Chris Thompson out in Washington. He's gonna be a
Yeah,
part of that offense as long as he's healthy. So that
right.
you're already limiting the potential upside of On Johnson, who can be involved in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
I think your Packer guys are very interesting.
Yes.
Every day I
Which
go
one or all of them?
every day I go back and forth between Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams.
Sure.
I think I'm probably just like we've talked about before, but taking the better value. It's probably going to be a lot of Jamal Williams for me, just because people seem a little more hyped on Aaron Jones.
Hmm.
Um, and then C.J. Anderson, who we kind of touched on a little earlier, in the eighth round for a guy that could be 700 or 800 yards and close to double digit touchdowns.
Yep.
I think that's a great shot. And obviously, if he's not kind of a flex worthy guy, or a borderline RB2, I still think that's a huge gain in where you're taking him in the eighth
Hmm.
round. And it really is interesting, kind of, as the season approaches, and the more of the CBS and ESPN and Yahoo leagues start kicking up, to kind of see how the ADP fluctuates. Because in fantasy, with us on Twitter, or we're doing mocks and stuff, I know there's a lot of guys that'll get moved up, or guys that aren't as sexy that don't get taken as high, and then come draft time
Right.
they're actually going 2 rounds earlier. So he's the guy that I'm going to kind of keep an eye on, just because people know
Hmm.
that name and stuff. But if I can get him in the 7th round or 8th round, I'm going to be probably doing it quite a bit.
Yep. I really like to grab. Really love this like round 12 through 15 range running
Mm-hmm.
backs. Corey Clement was there, and it's on here. It's showing that he's bumped up all the way to like the ninth round now, which is
Yeah.
crazy to me. But the guy who's in that range for me that I'm really intrigued by is Matt Breida.
Mm.
I feel like nobody talks about him, or he's kind of like the forgotten guy, but he's, as far as I can tell, still the number two on the 49ers. He was there last year, so
Yeah.
he knows the playbook. If McKinnon doesn't pan out as well as everyone thinks he will, or if he gets hurt, Matt Breida could be a steal in the 13th round.
I love that call, and you know what? It's interesting because Breida and McKinnon both played together at Georgia Southern. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
obviously a connection there. I think McKinnon will be cool enough where he'll let him get touches. I think that if that offense lives up to the hype, Obviously McKinnon going around 2 is just too pricey for me. Like, I
Yeah.
understand the volume's going to be there and the potential is there, and he should be really good. But like, at the same time, if we think all these things, then Breida should be 10th round above Chris Carson, above LeGarrette Blount, above Naheem Hines,
Right.
and not down in round 13. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm with you in best ball, in deep leagues, taking shots on him at that point. Peyton Barber in the 14th round is kind of the same for me. I,
Yeah.
I think there's a non-zero chance that he's the starter for the majority of the season, and obviously,
I don't
uh,
disagree.
Jameis not being there for the first 3 games kind of is interesting, but it also could
Ugh.
mean that this team's more inclined to lean a little more
Yep.
run when they get in closer. Try a few more things. And I think Peyton Barber, like, I love Ronald Jones. I think there's a lot to like there. And I think he's a guy like in Dynasty that I want.
Yeah.
But in redraft, Peyton Barber might, in the 14th round, like that's if I end up with Breida and Peyton Barber as 2 of my last, 3 or 4 picks,
Right.
I'm ecstatic. I've added some depth to my bench, some potential, and then, we'll see how the first few weeks go. And, obviously, if they don't work out, take a shot. Devontae Booker's another guy. I love Royce Freeman. I think there's tons of opportunity there, but Devontae
Hmm.
Booker's a guy that's been there. He knows the system. He knows the playbook. This is a complete, like, Case Keenum under center is so much better than anything they've had in past years. So if this offense rolls back a little bit, and Manny Sanders and
Oh boy.
Demarius are kind of back to what they used to do, and I like Jake Butt a lot. Like, and all of a sudden this offense is rolling, and Devontae
Yeah.
Booker is falling in the end zone 6 times and getting you close to 1,000 yards. Like, he could be what C.J. Anderson was last year, and
Sure.
I think it's a great value.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed.
All right, dude. I think we'll call it there. But like we
Sounds
mentioned,
good,
we
man.
will be back soon. We're going to be talking all the positions as the 2018 season comes. We'll try and mix in some dynasty talk. We'll talk some best ball, as you guys are hopefully doing some of those over at either Fanball or PlayDraft.com. They're super fun, and they're great for just kind of getting your mind around where these players are going. And they don't take any in-season management, which is great. So you do your little drafts, you get your ball rolling, and then all of a sudden, you're better for your long-term league. So for my dude Pablo, I'm Kyle, and we'll talk to you guys next time.